I was diagnosed on the 9th of August 1993 with depression. I spent the next 12 years doing everything I could to hide it. And when I say everything, every day, I invested all of my energy into a facade of lies. How is it weak when my 27-year marriage ended in March of 2020 going into COVID and I cried because my marriage ended? How am I weak as a male that as a result of the marriage ending, my relationships with my 3 kids changed negatively with one of my daughters? To quote her, she hated me. I cried. It was painful. But in a football context, if you cried and you were a player, you were as weak as piss. If I took the chance or the risk and told people what I was living with, the risk was too high because I told myself this story every day for 12 years, that you would judge me, see me as weak, lose respect, I'd lose the relationships. For 12 years I did that. What I've learnt, all the things I believed and convinced myself that I would lose, I didn't lose. But what I lost was the opportunity to bring those people into my life, explain to them what I was going through, give them the opportunity of choosing what they wanted to do. And what I've learnt through that process is that
when it comes to guys, like we feel like it's a sign of weakness, I guess, letting things out.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that personally. Well, I would not open up to anyone.
Why
no
not?
matter how depressed I am.
Why not?
It's just
Stigma.
Yeah, it's like you're gonna be judged.
Mm-hmm.
In this day and age, people love gossiping, so they're gonna take that, spread it everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, I just feel like it's a sign of weakness.
Whether or not you have a mental health condition, human beings are going to judge us anyway. And they'll talk and they'll criticise us and they'll say things about us. I appreciate your answer, Ali. I just interviewed the interviewers or the hosts. but this is a really important topic. I was diagnosed on the 9th of August 1993 with depression. I spent the next 12 years doing everything I could to hide it. And when I say everything, every day, I invested all of my energy into a facade of lies. In 12 years, 4 people knew the truth. My ex-wife, the doctor who diagnosed me in 1993, who up until November of last year was still my GP, a man by the name of Dr. Harry Younglick, and he is a man that I have openly said that I love him as much as my dad, with both of them in the same audience, because my ex-wife and my doctor kept me alive. They gave me hope and they gave me connection. Third person was the doctor at the Sydney Swan. 6 years after diagnosis, I asked for help. And then a beautiful lady psychologist in Sydney, Dr. Lisa Lampe, who I spent 4.5 years with, working really hard to understand the conditions and slowly reclaim my health. But for 12 years, I never talked to my dad or my mum, sister, family, friends, teammates, coaches, support staff, employers, anybody. Why? For the same reasons you didn't or you don't. For 12 years, I assumed if I took the chance or the risk and told people what I was living with, the risk was too high because I felt and believed, I believed. Because I told myself this story every day for 12 years. If we were friends or brothers or teammates and I told both of you, I was convinced that you would judge me, see me as weak, lose respect, I'd lose the relationships. For 12 years I did that. What I've learnt, all the things I believed and convinced myself that I would lose, I didn't lose. But what I lost was the opportunity to bring those people into my life, explain to them what I was going through, give them the opportunity of choosing what they wanted to do. And what I've learnt through that process is that people who genuinely care about you may not completely understand it, but they'll do everything they can to support you. So to anybody, male or female, but in particular to the men out there, how is it weak when my 27-year marriage ended in March of 2020 going into COVID and I cried because my marriage ended? How am I weak as a male that as a result of the marriage ending, my relationships with my 3 kids changed negatively with one of my daughters? To quote her, she hated me. I cried. It was painful. How is it weak of me as a business owner in August of 2020 living in Melbourne when the state government locked down non-essential businesses so we had a month's worth of payroll left? I challenge it. I'm a human being that goes through a range of different experiences in life, similar to all of us. If we haven't already, we will at some point. How is somebody who's going through really challenging, upsetting experiences, who taps into their emotions and cries weak. I really challenged that motive and that thinking because I was one of those. I believed for most of my adult life that crying was for weak people. And in a gender, sort of adopting a gender lens here, which I don't like to do, but in a football context, if you cried and you were a player, you were as weak as piss. Sorry to swear. And we didn't cry because we were conditioned not to cry. And I didn't cry because I didn't want to lose respect. I wanted my teammates to love me. I wanted them to trust me. I wanted them to believe in me. But if you cried, you were seen as not manly enough. I don't subscribe to that anymore. I've cried more in the last 6 years than I ever have in my entire life. And I haven't said sorry once. And I won't to anyone. Because what am I saying sorry for? That's how I was brought up. That's what I was taught. It's not about blame or responsibility. But what I mean by that is I've been presenting all over the country for 20 years, nearly 20 years. And I will ask audiences, which tend to be mixed genders, to stand up if you can remember a time when you were around the age of 8, 9 or 10 and you did something as a boy or a girl and you hurt yourself, you felt pain, you cried. I'll ask audiences to stand up if they can remember an experience like that. 98 to 99% of audiences will stand up. And guess what? Almost all the men do. And then I'll follow up and ask them, stay standing if you've continued to behave the way as a young boy or a young girl now that you're a grown man or grown woman. Less than 10% of the audience will stay standing. Why do I share that? Because there's this narrative which still gets perpetuated that males don't behave that way. It's not true. It's not true. We're born different genders, obviously, but human beings are born with this beautiful capacity of being emotionally connected and emotionally expressive. How do I know that? Every time I engage with an audience, I ask the questions and 98 to 99% of people stand up, including most of the men. It's not something that the women in our lives do. Some of them do, some of them don't. But we're born with the same capacity. And then tragically and unfairly, what happens is it gets conditioned out of us. By the time you grow up, you're not expected to behave that way. Well, a marriage breaks down. We don't get to see our kids. A parent passes away. We have to relocate to another country and we're on our own. We're human beings. We're supported and encouraged to tap into certain emotions, but we're discouraged and conditioned and sometimes criticised for tapping into other emotions. One of the most important messages that I am committed to sharing with people is to encourage people to reconnect emotionally and take the chance of tapping into all of your emotions. Because when you're emotionally disconnected, you don't have an ability of regulating what you're going through. And you may not have a language which allows you to talk to people about challenging experiences. And that was my experience. And I've connected to all of my emotions. I'm 55. Obviously, I'm male, played football, father, son, partner, friend, business owner. I will challenge anybody that thinks that I'm weak because I'm emotional. I'm not. I'm an emotionally connected human being, and that's empowering.